Item number 7 is the clerk budget review, Register of Deeds, Karen Spranger, Macomb County Clerk. What I want to first do is have Executive Deldon come up and speak about the correspondence that has kind of gone back and forth, and then have our Finance Department come up, and then possibly Karen Spranger as well after that. Mr. Deldon.
Thank you. Long before the county executive form of government was instituted, there was a process here in county government where department heads and elected officials had to submit their upcoming annual budget to the Finance Department by date certain. And this year, that date was June 23rd. We mail those budgets out sometime in May to give the department heads and elected officials ample time to assess their needs as it relates to the upcoming budget year. In this case, it's for calendar year 2018. In conversations with the Finance Department, we had discussed, being that Clerk Spranger and previous other elected officials were new, that we at least extend a hand and offer our support and assistance, meaning the Finance Department, to show them how to construct a budget, since this is their first time around. That, in fact, did happen. In fact, Clerk Spranger reached out to the Finance Department before we got to her, and it was several days before the June 23rd deadline. So we were feeling pretty optimistic that that she had a handle on what needed to be submitted. June 23rd came and went when the Finance Department called Clerk Spranger. She said we would have it in a few days. Well, those few days turned into about 7 weeks, and we were still going to accept it even in early August, as we felt it was critical, but to have that piece of the budget. After repeated attempts and no budget, and the executive's office still does not have a budget from her today, we looked at the 2017 budget that was presented to you a year ago, and that is what you have in your packets today. So it really is a continuation budget in the sense that all of our line items stayed the same, unless there were some known increases, whether it be raises in employee salaries or fringe benefit costs. Those things were increased, but everything else stayed the same. We didn't know what to do. And the budget is worth, several millions of dollars annually, but we had to plug a number in there. So we felt the safest place to start would be to do that. To date, and she was informed of that through communication from me, which I have provided the Board of Commissioners earlier today. To date, still no budget has shown up in our office. So it's been frustrating, to say the least. But we're moving forward. So if there are no questions on that, I have even some more detailed information I'd be happy to pass around that just goes into a little bit more detail on who said what and when. In fact, I'll just, if I can give it to Commissioner Kraft.
Okay, so with that, do any of the commissioners have questions for Executive Deldon right now? Commissioner Duge?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This isn't for Mr. Deldon specifically, but why do we have the Civil Service Commission? Is that part of the clerk's department?
Yes.
All right, that's what I needed to know.
So it looks like we have your Civil Service Commission, County Clerk, Elections, Jury Commission,
right,
Register of Deeds.
I wasn't aware that the Civil Service Commission came out of that the clerk's department also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions, commissioners, for Mark? If not, we'll go ahead and thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
If not, we'll go ahead and ask our Finance Department to come up and go through the budget.
Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. What you have in front of you is the finance recommended budget for the clerk and register of deeds and her associated departments. Just very briefly, Mark covered pretty much everything that I was going to regarding the continuation budget, and that what you're looking at is some different numbers than 2017 as a result of expected changes for salaries, fringes, internal services, and so forth, as those are done across the county either way. The clerk budget is $4,937,469. Register of Deeds budget, $1,477,558. Register of Deeds remonumentation budget, $223,926. Register of Deeds technology fund budget, $1,270,124. And concealed pistol license fund budget was $141,660. At this time, I'd invite Karen if there are no questions for me.
Any questions for Finance Department right now, Commissioners? Commissioner Toko?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if this is just a continuation budget, do you know where the clerk's office is in the budget this year? Are they under budget, or are they on track to be within the budget?
The 2017 year-to-date information, I don't have that off the top of my head, but I believe that budgetarily, at least with the wages, they have quite a few vacancies. So I don't want to say for sure if they're under overall, but definitely with wages, they're under.
So for wages, they're under, but you're not aware that in any other area they're over?
I could quickly find out and get back to you. I could
Okay.
run a budget to actual as soon as I get back to the office.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Finance Department, Commissioners? Commissioner Leonetti?
Commissioner Drollet was ahead of me. I'll let him. He might have some questions I
I
might
see him
have.
on my list. Thank you. Commissioner Drollet, sorry about that.
That's all right. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Leonetti. Just, is there anything that's, I realize this is a continuation budget. Has there been any anticipated changes of anything of any nature beyond what was done last year? Like, is there some big change in a particular fund or department that's just anticipated because of state law changes? Or is this pretty much a straight line continuation with no anticipated changes of any significance?
Straight line continuation with no anticipated changes.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Leonetti, you're next now.
You know, I think he asked the question I was going to ask, so thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you. And Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you. I just, looking back and forth, just wanted to clarify because I didn't understand what the paperwork from our office meant, but I do now. So the numbers look different, but they're actually the same numbers. It's just we have some columns in here that are giving us information that isn't in the regular budget. That would be correct, right, Crystal? So it looks different, but it's the same if you look at the top because it's got forecasted and change up there. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Steve? Okay, seeing none, Steve. Thank you. County Clerk Spranger, you want to come up and make some comments on the budget and why you were unable to submit it on time?
Karen Spranger, welcome. First of all, because of the complications of where we're at in the new building, and our system is not up and running to 100%. We had a lot of issues with our computer system functioning in just the capacity to service our customers and keeping the systems up and running. August 16th, we had another failure in the system, which is showing that we need IT support or the company that I have, a vendor, to work better together, because with the new building, it seems that the power itself and the wireless mesh system of the internet is not communicating well with the systems that we have side by side. There's a lot of hardware that is becoming an issue for us. The scanners aren't working properly. My computer is down. My printer is down. Some of the things that I had given in the format of this document that was filled in, and I forwarded to Finance on my computer, thinking they received it. Didn't know they did not receive the figures and numbers that I presented to them. I assume they did. I'm hearing today they didn't. When we meet, it's like here today. The sessions that we had to meet together, I couldn't because of other obligations. And then when we set another meeting up, I was ready to go. and then they couldn't meet. Then they canceled the meeting totally based on a format, on a software that wasn't functioning right on my computer system. I reported it, IT came in, we thought it was fixed. It wasn't saving any of the information that you have to put in to these folders for finance. It is a software computer system that isn't working on my network. I don't know if it's too complex right now. I have too much going on in the office as far as hardware goes, but there is a failure. As we work through the motion of being secure in the new building, we have some issues as far as accountability. I asked for an audit verbally, was told no. I need an independent audit on the factual information that is lacking in the department to show the figures properly. And when I say accurate, I mean the actual paperwork, the actual number. I don't like to make up a number if I can't tell you what it is. So when you put numbers into these areas and I have no actual reports, I need an audit. I need to tell you from the new county clerk, from the old county clerk, what was established on the amount that was left in each fund. And the CPL seems to be the biggest problem for the clerk's office. I've asked and talked to some of the commissioners how to do this audit. I have yet to again ask you to help me do the audit so I can present the figures adequately and successfully. Now, I will show you my paperwork, and here's this paperwork, and all these were filled out except for the clerk's office because of the accuracy in one of the departments that was lacking. So without the proper figures, I cannot give you adequate answers. I guessed my figures do not complement what they put in as my recommended numbers. I ask you if you want to work with me, we can sit down, the branches, all three of us, and I'll show you what I did prepare. I'm surprised today that this information wasn't gathered properly or put into a program that was acceptable, because sometimes the old-fashioned way is giving you a hard copy. If I knew that, I would have had my hard copy today. I explained before that our offices are being set up in such a way that our capacity to meet the needs comes first with customers and just operations. And because of the changes in the office and the new location and a big upcoming move, I had to make decisions on what came first because we have a big major move within 2 weeks or less. Packing, having people pitch in and coordinate things. So in my due diligence today, if we want to work and show a cooperation, I will show you what I did provide to the executive, which was denied and said my figures are not acceptable. At least I could have an impartial committee, which are you guys. We can call it a workshop, whatever. I can come back, give the hard copy instead of the computer copy, because when the computers are down, I don't have access to them. And I will be happy to tell you what my figures are and go back and have IT help me get the communications of the software program adequately on my computer, as well as the other deputies that do this work. So when I can't have my computer successfully operating, this project of communicating with finance is broken. So that's my response to you. I can show you what I did, how I did it, and we can get down to why it was a dysfunctional transmission from my computer to their software, to the software, to finance. But I can show that I did submit it. What happened after that, I can't answer in the middle of what didn't transpire on their end. Apparently we're on the same building, so I always run up to them when I have an issue directly because it's the fastest way to go. Sometimes it's faster than a phone call because you wait a lot of times when the phones are busy. And sometimes when you have to do an emergency call for paying people on time, doing the budget to a point where I can be accountable for the overtime that we have to spend because of the way the system lacks accountability on hiring people. We have issues on that level, and I just hope that you guys will be workable and supportive. I am a new county clerk. I will admit when I need help, I will ask. I don't think it's too late to work with me on my budget, and if they're extending their help, we can have a positive relationship with a third party to look at what I want and what they want. It's obviously we're at a difference here. And I'm saying that these are not the figures I presented. I did present the figures. I wish I would have known earlier in a better correspondence that this format was not received. Because once you put the information into this PDF file that they send me, I assumed they received it. Now, if they didn't, and it's a problem, sometimes communications is a two-way street. I assume they received it. I'm finding out they didn't. So I can go back to IT, go on my computer, and without a question of a doubt, show you this was put into my computer. If it's not in there, and it shows a record of it, then you can see how my computer is not communicating with the software. There's a glitch in the program. I know it's a new building. I know we have a lot of hardware just from Register of Deeds. We have a lot of hardware from Vital Records. In my just observation on the few months I'm there, one time, all stations on Vital Records were down. 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock. No work done, total disaster. We still have to get a report on what happened, why that building cannot sustain what I need to do with each of my departments. So it is a complex problem. I'm sharing my concerns with you. If there's an old-fashioned way to do a budget, then let's sit down and do it. And whoever the committee person is to help me do an audit on some of the subdivisions department that need to have an audit done just for safety reasons of the figures are right, they're accurate, and the paperwork is in order. I welcome you to reach out to me today and tomorrow so we can start that process. And then my budget will be finished in a very professional way as the clerk in the past has done. But I did not provide these figures. They were put in by the executive branch, and that's where I stand on my budget. If there's time and there's a process of every month, and if there's a stumbling block on this budget, which I know from previous experience going to budget hearings, not as an elected official, but as a citizen, when one department was not able to provide their budget, they had an opportunity to come back and present their budget. And that was granted. So I'm just saying, with all the complications in my office and being a new county clerk, I'm proud to say that I'm extending out my hand to you to reach out. And if anybody has a willing hand to help back and you have skills in this budget, then we can review what I need. There is a upcoming issue where we are going to be expanding into a statewide e-filing program. And this is where the new vision that I see in that area, and the attorneys will appreciate my concern on this. E-filers are a special group of people that should spend a certain amount of time to get that production going and to get that file in on time. We don't work on weekends, but attorneys do, and so do these e-filings coming in on weekends. Being that it's going to be statewide in September, I'm going to ask for your extended hand to look at this problem I'm going to have immediately, where we do not have a staff of e-filers like the other counties do. They have 7 full staff, each county, Wayne County and Oakland County. My staff is designed in the computer maintenance. You start off in the file room, you learn to do the mail, You learn to do the counter work, and then you start into e-filing. It's a process. Until if you're skilled in that area, which we would prefer, it's easier to teach because you're familiar with the system, especially if you work in an attorney's office, especially if you already came from another county having that experience. We don't have a system right now in HR to select that group of people, because when the applicants come in and the applicants aren't sorted right to fit my needs for the clerk's office and therefore the register of deeds, I wish we could flip-flop those applicants to go to the right department. I don't have that luxury. It's a glitch in the system, and in my capacity as the clerk, I wish you would take a second look at how we hire people and how my capacity of service to the community is selective. We need people trained. There's time to train that. And we always have the ability going within the structure. So if I can build another department just of e-filers, that is going to meet the need for this upcoming September. It's going statewide. They're using us as a pilot program. So I would like to immediately come to the board, work with anybody that is experienced on getting this project together, and see that vision that's going to be needed, because this is a very important new concept, a new division in my department.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, it seems like we've gotten way, way off track here. We're
Okay.
supposed to be discussing the budget, and now we're hearing the clerk's wish
The
list.
reason I'm bringing that up,
can we
there's
kinda
no item in
stay-
the
Let's
budget.
stay to the subject.
Let's stay on track.
Clerk Spranger, this is just about the budget.
Okay.
So, okay. So we have a couple speakers here. Commissioner Lucido.
I just need to say, because you have a section on the program for the identity of new positions, old positions, vacant positions, that's what I was addressing. So if that information was put into the application and it's not given to you today, I would like to have a chance to present it again. Consideration. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Lucido.
Hello, Clerk Spranger. Sorry.
Sorry.
Can you speak into your mic, please?
Sure.
Okay.
I had a question for you. You said that you had submitted the budget, but you didn't believe that it went through because of technology glitches. Do you remember the date when you submitted that budget?
That was basically about, we had a first meeting to meet, and there was a glitch of trying to meet at that time. So we set up another date, which would be May and June. And what happened is I filled this in with my numbers and how you send the PDF file with the information back to the sender. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if this wasn't brought to my attention immediately, they didn't receive it, either they got half of it and they won't accept half of the presentation, because if I need an audit for my clerk department to get the figures right and to be accountable for that figure, that's why I asked for an audit. Now I'm asking, if budget season, if I can't give you an honest answer on the clerk's budget, the total amount, it's because I lack that information to give you a correct figure,
Okay.
especially for some of the funds that are cash.
Do you remember around, was it June, was it July that you sent your budget through and you don't believe it went through?
Well, what we do, I don't know if are you up on this?
Just the date.
Okay. That would
there's
be
been a lot of
within-
back and forth about
that
there
would
not
be
being one
within-
submitted. Okay.
Steve from Finance, what date do you have, Steve?
If you look at the memo in front of you that Mr. Delvin handed out earlier in the meeting, the deadline for let's see if I can find it on here real quick. The deadline for the continuation, basically, if we didn't receive it by then, we were going to do a continuation budget, was on Thursday, July 27th at 4:30 p.m. She did turn in an incomplete budget, but she did turn in something that we did receive, Karen, on Tuesday, August 1st.
Okay. So it did go through?
Yes.
And did you let her know that you had received it, or?
Steve Smeagol received it. I assume
Okay.
that he did.
Okay. I'll just ask one more question. You said that Oakland County and Wayne County have 7 employees each for the e-filing, but that Macomb was the pilot? If they're already doing it,
No, they're not in the pilot program
then why do they have 7 employees
because
each?
they're up on the needs of their services for the e-filing. See, our need is the same thing, but we have overtime to pick up that slack. And then we always had it structured in the past the way the clerk did it before me. They would gauge it. So during the holidays, you always got behind a big number for e-filing. And then they had overtime for like 2 to 3 weeks to catch up. They never had a full team of e-filers. So I started to do that on my own and noticed that the capacity of 300 e-filers, or the numbers come in 300 a day, and you're behind, you can get up to 1,000, 1,500 that's not responded to. And over the weekends, when the holidays come up, start adding 300, 300, 300. You're behind the first day you come back to work.
Okay, so we've done this in the past.
Yes.
Previous clerk did e-filing as well.
Right, but because it's going to be statewide, just double that figure or triple that figure. So we do need some full staff.
Okay.
That's my personal observation of how it works in the clerk's office.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, Chair Bob Smith.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Clerk. So I just have a couple of questions for you. Right now, it looks like you're on track to be double your overtime budget in your clerk's office. Are you aware of that?
Yes, we are, and the justification would be because of the way our moves are scheduled. We needed to accommodate that transition period, and we're going to have another big move, and it's going to be the same catch-up. I will be happy to go back to the reports of our current numbers to be accurate. I do have someone who's working on that to present that if I have opportunity. If you're going to say I can't present a budget, then I need to know that. Then I would continue on doing some of the other important things I need to finish. But yes, I want to have opportunity to bring that information to you, whatever format I can, whether it's paper, whether we get the computer fixed, my software issue, whatever it takes, we need to communicate more effectively.
Okay, so you don't think that this double the overtime projection that we're looking at for this year has anything to do with all the vacancies in your department, in your office?
No, it's the workload of the new system that we have for e-filers. It's increasing. It's been increasing, and that's what my need is we don't have full-time staff on e-filing.
How many staff, how many full-time staff are you down right now? I mean, how many vacancies do you have right now in your department? Just regular employees, not counting supervisors on administrative leave. Do you know how many you're down right now?
Okay, that would just be the file room. We promoted everybody up to the other positions, and that would be 3 to 4 computer maintenance for the file room.
So you're saying you're only down 3
And then,
to
of
4
course,
staff?
my chief staff, but he does not work, and he does not do some of that work. He does the other.
Since we have HR here, is there any chance you could answer that question for me? Do you have any idea on what the real number is? You're saying 3 or 4 minus supervisors, obviously. And I'm not talking about your clerk, your chief deputy and that. I'm talking about regular, everyday workers.
I'm not 100% sure. I believe the last time we reported, we were at 12. I think since then, we've hired maybe 2 or 3, so we could be around 9.
Okay.
That's what I believe. I'm not 100% sure, though.
Okay. Thank you. And that's, I would say that from knowing the past administration, a lot of the people were cross-trained on a lot of things, including e-filing, so I would consider that, instead of worrying about trying to hire people specific for a job, that's a pretty, I think, a very economical way of doing things is to cross-train people in this situation. And obviously being down 9 people has to contribute to your overtime wages, looking at being doubled this year.
When you look at our figures, you'll see where we need strength in e-filing.
Okay.
Not
And
the
yes,
counter.
I
not
agree,
the-
you do need some strength
Yes.
in e-filing. We've been hearing about that from the court for quite some time now, and we've had no real movement in that. So you're saying that you didn't know, back to this budget, you didn't know that you didn't have a properly submitted budget until just this moment when you walked in this room?
When they emailed me information of denying my budget,
When was that? I'm sorry.
I don't have the date, but according to what they said today, I was denied.
Right. So executive's
So
office,
when my
finance
figures
sent you
don't
that?
show up in the timely fashion when they print this booklet, which I don't know when they printed, I guess there is a time frame to cut off. So usually you put a minus or a 0, because if I didn't fill in those numbers, those are not my numbers.
Okay, that's not what happens
But that's
around
what
here.
I'm saying.
Okay, so you knew basically that they didn't accept whatever you gave to them, whatever you thought was a fine budget, but you knew that, and you're not here with any solid numbers to talk to us about, any
I can't
ideas
show
on-
you the documents that they did receive, and apparently you do not have a direct link to that unless we event it. We can have a direct link. I would have provided what I sent them the same day.
Okay.
That's all I can say.
Can you tell me how many administrators are on leave right now? How many supervisors you're down? I'm sorry, supervisors are on administrative leave right now?
That was not something I planned for. That was made a decision.
Okay, I'm not asking who, I'm just saying how many are you down right now? How many supervisors are supposed to be there that aren't there technically?
That didn't show up for work. Let's see. Chief Deputy for the court. 1 supervisor resigned. The record for supervisors for the court is gone. So that's 3 supervisors. And the election supervisors, current. Lisa Moan is on a sick leave, but she's in Register of Deeds.
So 5, if I'm counting right?
About 5, yes.
Okay. Do you have a plan for filling these? Because those are obviously not, I'm guessing those aren't part of the 9 that we have right now.
Correct. Hopefully,
Or addressing this issue one way or another?
addressing the walkout, no notice to me why they left their work station, or no correspondence other than HR saying they put them on administrative leave, which I did not approve.
Okay, so I guess one last question before I say this. iPads, I know that in Vital Records you took away the iPads and you have everybody using carbon copy paper. We're back to like 1980 on that. Is there a reason behind that? Are you planning on going that way with, I mean, should we be looking at taking more money out of like supplies and putting them into, instead of computers, should we be putting them into carbon paper, or, I mean, what are we looking at with
Those
this?
systems are very old. I was
iPads are
told-
old?
They only would calculate credit cards, not the cash.
Okay.
So
All right, well,
the cashiers are responsible for everything. So when you have a computer maintenance that is doing vital records and servicing the customer, they were doing a cashier's work, and we had to change it because of the new design in the new building, and that's what happened.
Okay, thanks. Madam Clerk, I just have to say that sometimes you have to sit around and look at the big picture and realize that when everything is just happening to you, that maybe it's not everybody else that might be the problem, because we have a new treasurer, we have a bunch of new people in positions around here, and I've been here for quite a while now, and I don't have, when I ask for help from finance, they give it to me. When I ask for help from IT, they give it to me, or HR. When we have hiring issues, they come and work with you, and I've heard that that's been the case this whole time, but somehow or another, we're still having problems. So I'm just, I really don't want an answer. It's not to the budget. Sometimes you have to sit back and look at where the problem really sets here, because there's a lot of departments that help an awful lot of people, and I can't believe for the life of me that they're not helping you with the proper things that you need. And so
Well, I
I'm
did
done
ask.
with my budget questions on here, and I know that we'll talk more about budgeting as this goes, because I'm sure you're going to get us something in the near future that would resemble something to look at, because right now all we have is a continuation budget, so there's not really much to go on here.
Thanks, Chair Smith. Next on the list, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. First, this is to Chair Smith. When you're talking about the double and overtime, are you looking at the 2017 adopted versus the estimated full year as opposed to the 2016 actual versus the 2017? Yeah.
I'm looking at the estimated full year for 2017. What's been used year to date already is 64,000. What's budgeted and adopted for this year is 62,000. So they're already over. At halfway through the year, they were over. And
Yeah, I just wanted clarification. Yes. Thank you. Two things for Clerk Spranger. The first is it's just a comment, and it's just a brief one. Had you come in and spent about 6 months learning all the positions and what everybody does before making moves and making changes, and possibly building relationships with us and the county exec's office and the court and everything else, things might be going smoother for you now than coming in right out of the gate indicating everything is antiquated. You know, that's just the comment. But here's my question. If the budget that the county executive submitted is missing something, for instance, we need to put more money in e-filing because there are big changes coming, don't we always have the opportunity to amend in the future if you are correct and that needs to be done?
In theory, yes.
Okay.
But the theory doesn't hold a solution for this budget that is the purpose of putting in that need, called the new position, how many, what is vacant. That's all data information that's filled out into this software. And that is very important to know. So if it's not too late and there's a time frame that I can come back, I'm willing to work with you because you're the last hope. If the executive made a decision and that's his budget, I should have opportunity to tell you what my figures were at this open meeting and present it to you. If this is the only day I can do it, then that's the consequence. But if there is any way I can come back with hope and desire to meet your needs and show you my figures and document it, whether it's through the computer system or a software system that's going to work for me and you, I can email it you directly if that's a format that I can use, then I would be happy to go directly that route. But when I have a tool.
Okay, so I had asked a specific question, and I know that there are other commissioners that want to ask a question. So I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to stay on what I asked specifically because other commissioners might ask you questions relative to what you're talking about. But we do always have the opportunity to amend. So if we're on a real tight schedule with our budget, we have to meet every single budget meeting and get work done, or we get behind and then we don't get the budget done in time. So I just, you agree that we do always have the opportunity in the future, if indeed those numbers aren't correct, to come back and amend the budget. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. You know, in the beginning of your conversation, all I heard was excuses and blame. If you had a problem of any sort, you got 13 people up here who are they're pretty bright. They'll listen to you. Not once did you come before us and say, I got this problem or I need this. So what I'm trying to tell you is exactly what she was talking about. You should have worked together with us. And you haven't worked together with us. And I'm tired of hearing blame and blame and blame and excuses. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to echo Commissioner Sauger's comments. You know, you have a tool here with our finance department. They're our audit department here in the county, and they know their numbers. And if you have any problems, you can go to them, and they'll show you the numbers and everything. And I do resent you blaming the executive's office for coming up with these numbers. These are the same numbers from the previous year. Only number that is off here is excessive overtime because of your incompetence with all these vacancies.
Like I said, these were not the numbers I turned in. That's my statement. I stand firm. And I also will stand firm that I did approach on other items to have help from the commissioners. And I'm still waiting to get some of that help. I'm going to say I have hope. I know we need to bridge our attitude. My new slogan is, attitude is gratitude. I'm grateful for any commissioner who's willing and able to show that you are willing to do a budget with me. If not, then I have to live with the consequences.
How do you want us to do a budget with you?
I didn't say do
when
a budget with me.
you won't even meet with the appropriate channels to submit your own budget? So you're blaming us that we're not
No.
doing our job to meet with you and come up with a budget.
Let me clarify that. I said this is coming to the board with the budget. I said I presented my figures to the executive. I made a statement very clear. They do not have my figures that I supplied to that office. Whatever the complication reason is, I will show you my data and the facts. If you're open to that, I welcome this communication with you on this budget issue. I'm asking for an audit. I believe you should be able to help me with a process called an audit. I believe there's a way to do this with your support. Thank
I just
you.
want to ask Executive Delden if you can make some comments on what she's saying and her proposing. What did she propose to you guys and what you came up with and whatnot? I'd like to hear from you a little bit, if that's okay. Your thoughts or comments.
Well, not to belabor this frustrating topic, but while the clerk continues to bring up the topic of hope and desire, it was the county executive and finance department's hope and desire that she would have submitted her budget on time. That was in June 23rd, when all the other department heads and elected officials had submitted one on time. It was our hope and desire that for subsequent weeks after that, when we continued to email her, and she kept responding with a couple more days, that she would submit it by the end of the business day on July 27th. Still no budget. The morning of July 28th, and you may have that email in front of you, I emailed her and said, we are not meeting again. We are not going to set up another meeting. We are submitting the budget for you. We agreed, both Steve Smeagol, myself, and Chairman Bob Smith agreed back in March or April on what this year's budget timeline was. The county executive is obligated by charter to submit a budget to the Board of Commissioners by date certain. The date that we had agreed to back in March or April was Friday, August 18th. So we were under the gun. We weren't just sitting around waiting for people to take their darn time to get their budgets to us. This is serious business. You know what the budget is worth or what it's valued at. So it's really frustrating. I'm sorry, but sitting in the audience and to hear excuses about it was everybody else's fault but hers, including our technology, is false, because I just stepped out in the hallway and I talked to our CIO, Jacob Ambler. I said, do you have any help desk tickets from anyone in the clerk's department that the systems were not operating? And he said, absolutely not. And I'm tired that for the last 8 months, every time I deal with an issue with this department, with this elected official's office, it is always someone else's or something else's someone else's fault. And it's just really frustrating, and I'm sorry that it's coming out here today, but this is serious business. So she had ample time to work with finance department or our office to submit a budget. She chose to ignore that, and now she's asking you to help her build her budget.
I'm just saying to look at my data, my facts, and I think the rebuttal today would be, I have a right to prove what I gave, what were the numbers, and what my budget was proposed. That's my case here.
Okay, we have a few other commissioners on the list. On the first round, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Clerk Spranger, for being here. Couple questions for you. I believe you did state that you had you did hire 2 employees in your office recently.
Say that again?
You did hire 2 employees in your office?
Yes.
What positions, if I may ask?
There would be counter maintenance clerks.
Okay. The second question I have is, way back when you took office, you and I discussed that you had a vacancy in the budget position in your office, the person who puts the budget together and puts that together to help you submit that. Did you ever fill that position that I asked you to?
That's called the admin coordinator, correct? Is that the position you're referring to?
I believe that's the name of it. Yes. Yes, did you fill that position?
No, we did not.
Okay. And this is where I'm getting personally frustrated, is that back in January, I mentioned that to you. And you're going to need this before budget season. And this person is the one that's going to help you put your budget together with your office and your other employees. You didn't do that. Is it in there now where you're looking to fill that position?
Yes.
So you did ask HR to fill that position?
Because of the NeoGov type of software program
No,
that I'm just saying my
Ma'am,
computer system and
excuse me,
everything is
all
an
due
issue now.
respect, I'm talking about this particular position. Did you go to HR and tell them you wanted to fill this position?
Not recently, if you're referring to time frame.
Right. So at any time, did we ask to fill the administrative coordinator position? Did you go to HR and ask them to fill that position?
We were feeling the immediate needs of all our,
I'm not asking about any other position. I'm asking about the one that does the budget that you and I talked about in January. Did you ask HR to fill that position, to assist you in filling that position?
I had a lot of positions to fulfill.
Okay, so I take that as a no, you didn't.
I would have to go back on my notes, to be honest. I can't sit up here and say I didn't or I did.
And you know what?
I would rely
And
on
that's
my
fine.
notes, but if you want
And that's
a
fine.
recall of it, it's only fair to give you an honest answer. If I don't remember at this moment, I don't remember.
Okay, so the deadline, June 23rd, is the executive's office was supposed to have everybody's budget submitted from all the different departments. When did you start working on your budget?
The people that were assigned to work on it were the 2 deputies that were fired, and then we got a new deputy. I'm still trying to get the other deputy filled. And there's a process because the chief judge is reviewing the candidates.
Ma'am?
That's a process, just like a process to hire people. There's a process. It's not the fastest, and that's what I got to deal with.
So my question was, is that when did you start working on the budget for this?
As soon as we talked about it, and we had that workshop, and you drilled me, I started doing it. I started doing some of it, and once these PDFs came in, I put the information in it, and I sent it. So I'll prove that. That's what I can say today.
I just, and not to belabor this, I just have one more question for you. You said that your computer is down and your printer's down and they don't work.
Today, yes. And I reported it. So
Okay. You reported it to who?
it's usually the help desk. You fill out that magic call, they take it in, and then you get a response back, and then they come in and they work on your computer to get it up and running. And it's not just my computer, it's everyone else's computer too. So it's not isolated.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure I have this clear in my mind, and thank you for coming, Ms. Spranger. Jaco, who heads up our IT department, from what we just heard, said there was never a report that anybody had any problems with their computers or that their computers were down. Now, I'm not going to start pointing fingers, and I'm not going to use that word, but somebody's not telling the truth here now. Is it Jaco who heads up the IT, or is it you? Because if he mandates all his calls and collects all those appointments where there's problems with computers, I'm sure that he would take care of them. And he's saying, as Mr. Delvin just stated, that he has none. So somewhere along the line, the string has been broken, and I don't know if it's his end or your end, and I'm having my doubts about your end, but neither here nor there.
I'll give you
If
the
you
data
remember,
and the
forget that.
information.
Let me speak now. And incidentally, I don't think your question was answered yet, Mr. Carabelli, but that's a different story. I call it the two-step. I used to have a manager in Sterling Heights. He used to do the two-step. Danced really good. You dance well. Let me just bring this up. When I first came on board, I was the last commissioner because there was a challenge on my when it was voted on, and it was a challenge. So they challenged the ballot, and I had won, and I was late coming in. I took the initiative because I heard bits and pieces about the new county clerk. It was common knowledge something's going on, and I heard bits and pieces. I don't judge people like that. I judge people by a personal interview, by talking to them. I don't care what other people say about them. I want to see how they react with me and how I interact with them. So I took the initiative and came down to your office to introduce myself. Now, we went into your private office, and after some pleasantries, I said to you, let me give you, these are exact words now, and your deputy was there. Here's my personal cell phone number, Ms. Spranger or Karen. I would certainly like yours in return. Your response was this, and it's almost verbatim. I don't give out my personal cell phone number. And I said, oh, is there a reason? And these are your exact words, and I'm not adding or subtracting. No, I will not give it out. And I said, why not? Because you're all corrupt. Those are your exact words. You are all corrupt. With that, I stood up and I left the meeting. Now, you say you're reaching out to us. I reached out to you only to find out that I'm corrupt. So why would I want to continue the conversation? You have a problem, a definite problem. You need to have it taken care of. And if you don't, we will. So I'm just telling you, quit. I don't want a response because you're going to dance again. And I don't do the two-step. Somebody asks me a question, I give them a direct answer. You dance. That's all I have to do. I'm tired of hearing all this stuff. It's always somebody else's fault. I'm tired. I don't know why you guys are putting up with this. She's dancing, she answers, you ask her a question, let her answer that question and that question only. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Commissioner. I have on the first round, Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Karen.
Thank you.
I have a question, I guess, for Executive Delden, Assistant Executive Delden, maybe even Finance. I'm looking at your chart here, your agenda, not your agenda, but your memorandum. The thing that was submitted on Tuesday, August the 1st, it's indicated as an incomplete budget. I guess for us to do our fiduciary duty in some sense, do we have a copy of that? As incomplete as it is, and I don't know how it looks, but can we have a copy of that? I mean, it seems in fairness, something was submitted by the clerk, whatever it may look like. I think I have an obligation, and I think the other 12 commissioners have an obligation to at least take a look at that.
Well, go ahead, either Finance or Mark, please.
We can make that available to you. I can email it over to you. I will warn you, it's quite incomplete.
And that's fine. It's like, our job is to look over what department heads give to us. I understand the situation. You weren't given anything complete, but I guess we have to act like teachers and take a look at what was submitted and compare to what you submitted and do our fiduciary job here. That's the best we can do here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so you know, what Crystal, I believe, will end up getting the files. The clerk and register of deeds budgets were never actually submitted.
I saw.
It's the other funds that were, and they were rather incomplete. Revenue was missing, and it goes on from there. But you'll see.
I'll take a look at it and juxtapose it to what you submitted us, and I think I've done my duty. That's the best I can do under the circumstances.
And keep in mind, it wasn't until 3 business days before she submitted an incomplete budget that I notified her we would not be accepting her budget. Then she turned one in that it was incomplete at best.
And I understand that.
7 weeks after the deadline.
And I completely understand that. I just think in fairness, something was submitted. As commissioners, we should have a chance to just look at it and for what it's worth. Okay, thank you. Good to see you guys. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for being here today. I have a question for you. So they're saying that you submitted an incomplete budget right before the deadline. You're saying that you have numbers and a budget that you would be more than happy to show us.
Correct.
Is that incomplete budget different than what you say you have right now that you've been working on? Is it more in depth and detailed than what they have? Yes or no? This is a yes or no question.
Well, yes, if you
Okay.
figure this.
Where is
what I
that?
did.
Why don't
This
you have
came
it?
from finance.
Why don't you have it here today, Madam Clerk?
Because I didn't know I needed it here today. I thought, in my opinion, that everything's electronic. It was sent. It would be presented in this fashion of my figures. My figures are not in the budget. I'm here to say they're not in the budget.
I understand that, but if that were the case, and you knew that, and you had your own budget, still on the day of your budget review, if I were the clerk, I would be bringing what I had right here. I mean, I would have submitted it on time in the first place. But if you have that, you should have brought that with you so we could at least see that as well. So
My printers and computers are down. I just have to show you those paperwork to show you they are down, and we call. It should be recorded. I can tell you other people who have called. My deputy has records, so I can show we were down.
all right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. On the first round, Commissioner Toko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we're overanalyzing the whys and the what's going on the administrative end. We're the legislative branch of government. I don't think we need to continue on having questions and answers. We've gone on for an hour and 10 minutes, and there's really no good reason why the executive wasn't given a budget. I think that the executive has provided us a budget. Every other department does it this way. They work with the executives submits a budget, we review that. Why we're going on and on and on about the whys and entertaining the whys and listening to the whys is beyond me at this point. We have a budget that's been presented. If the clerk wishes to familiarize herself with the policies and procedures of this board for budget amendments, or if she wishes to ask the chair of that committee to put an item on the agenda, then we should do that. But I think we should kind of cut the questions at this point, start focusing on what we've been provided. Today's the day. The clerk doesn't have the different figures that she's referencing. We've got to move forward and do the work that we need to do on the budgets that's been presented. Thank you.
Okay, hold on. First round. Any other commissioners? First round, Commissioner Duje on the first round. I'll get to you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Toko. I actually agree with you. This is beyond madness. Nevertheless, I don't know who to ask. We've got one extra position from 2018 to 19. Do you know what it is, or does she know what it is?
It is the additional judicial court clerk for the new judgeship in 2019.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. That definitely. Now, after everything's said and done, the last time, Madam Clerk, the last time you were here, you mentioned that you needed 5 people for e-file. Have you filled any of those positions for e-file yet?
They're all new positions. They would be all new positions. Because right now, the counter clerks doing all the responsibilities, waiting on the customers, doing the other task that they're assigned to, does not give full, proper attention to e-filing. And I'm sure you understand that process.
You had said at least 2 months ago, that you needed 5, that you had 5 people that you were devoting to e-filing. And now, 2 months later, there still isn't anybody on e-filing.
The capacity of doing the 5 people that you need only serves what comes in, why I need full-time staff. If I'm doing overtime, think about it. Overtime means that I have a need. I'm saying the need is e-filers full-time to meet that need.
Mr. Chairman, I take it that means no. Thank you. I think it would behoove you to look into getting somebody for e-filing, among other things. But decorum doesn't allow me to continue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Last speaker I have is Chair Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree, I think, with Commissioner Toko. It's time to make a motion to move this forward. I do want to say, though, that we have a process for a reason, Commissioner Leonetti, and I know that you're a very nice guy and you're new to this and you always want to do things, but this process is give the budget complete to the finance. If it's not complete, they'll tell you it's not complete and, work with this, and they'll work with you until it's late. To sit there and look at these incomplete numbers and make them forward to us, not that it's a big issue, is something that we shouldn't get into that trap with doing. We don't want people going around finance and the executive's office coming to us with numbers that didn't quite make it through, the process that we have in place. So I would suggest that we look at what comes to us in the proper channels, and that's what we should continue doing. But I'd also ask if someone would make a motion we can receive and file and move this thing forward.
Okay, so it's been moved by Lucido, supported by Toko. Any questions
Thank you.
on the receive and file motion? Please take a vote, commissioners. Passes 12 to 1. Thank you,